So we're back with our 11th, I think it's 11th episode of the Utility Strategy Podcast, the first infrastructure podcast to shine a light on what we love to call utility strategy. As we all know, buried utilities pose enormous risk to any infrastructure project and create extreme uncertainty amongst the different stakeholders. The thing is that with the right utility strategy, we're able to mitigate that risk and streamline our project, which is what our podcast is all about. Sharing and gaining all kinds of insights that will enable just that, helping project managers, utility coordinators, estimators, mappers, planners, designers, engineers, and basically any other stakeholder overcome the challenges of buried utilities in our right of way. To help us do just that, we have here with us today Dr. Ahmed Al-Bayati, who is going to help us break down the challenges of the solutions that we've put together as an industry around buried utilities. A bit about Dr. Al-Bayati. He's the founding director of the Construction Safety Research Center, the CSRC, and an assistant professor in the Department of Civil and Architectural Engineering at Lawrence Tech University. He has contributed massively to the construction industry's understanding of how to prevent damage to subsurface infrastructure he's done this through several published peer-reviewed studies. He has even recently published a book about the OneCall systems through the American Society of Civil Engineers. And he's done this together with Louis Panzer, if I'm not mistaken. Dr. Al-Bayati, Ahmed, I hope it's okay that I call you Ahmed.
Yes.
Yeah, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. Tell us about yourself. Give us a brief.
So first thing, I would like to thank you and for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I watched most of your podcasts before, and you really...
Wow, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, most of them, they are very good, to be honest.
When you say most of them, which ones did you skip?
But all of them are good, and there are a lot of good information, and I really appreciate this type of interviews, because we need more of these, because this is the way that we can really improve the overall process. So I really appreciate the invite, and I'm happy to be with both of you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
As for me, I'm just teaching construction safety here at LTU, and I'm trying to improve the overall process when it comes to construction, and damages or damage prevention is one of these processes that I think there's need to focus on.
Now, is this something you stumbled into, or is this something you've always had a passion for?
So, no, to be honest, I started as a construction safety professional. So I was working with the city of Kalamazoo here in Michigan as a safety coordinator. I did my PhD all about construction safety. But later on, while I was working in Western Carolina University in North Carolina, I was very lucky to be introduced to my dear friend and colleague, Louis Panzer, who is the executive director of North Carolina 811 in 2017. Louis is a damage prevention leader who doesn't fear change. And this is very important, because people who will make change, those who doesn't fear it. Otherwise, they will come on the place, do nothing, and leave, retire, and everything is the same. So
sounds
he
like
is
we
a
need
real
to have him on the podcast.
Yes, I believe so. So
yeah.
He doesn't fear change when there's need to improve the overall process, and because of that, we have conducted several important studies about this topic. So since 2017, I started working on this topic, and I believe since then we learned a lot. Louis and we learned a lot about the topic itself.
So tell us a bit about the challenges of 811, like the OneCall system. What have you found? What have you discovered?
So basically, we did research studies in North Carolina and national survey and interviews with excavators and locators as well, who do the locate through the OneCall system. And basically, the main three challenges or shortcomings within the OneCall system, the three are: first one is they don't locate the private utilities, and because of that, construction firms, construction firms, and maybe even homeowners, they need to hire a private locating firm to locate the private utilities. And the second two challenges are the inaccurate locate and the delay time. So most states, they have they're supposed to provide the positive response, meaning they should locate utilities, physically mark the utilities within 3 business days. But unfortunately, some of locates take more than 3 business days. So these are the two main challenges within the system right now. So first one is they don't locate the private utilities. This is by itself. The other two challenges within the system is the inaccurate locates and the fact that locates take longer than the 3 business days. And these are the challenges. And we are within the construction industry. Normally, the schedule is very, very important. So we cannot really wait. So if it's 3 days, we need it to be done within 3 days because we have subcontractors need to come to the job site. We have a lot of timeline, liquidated damages at the end. So this is one of the challenges that should be addressed.
Now, when you're talking about those 3 different segments, it's really interesting to understand. Did you actually look into root causes and look into cause and effect and the economies of scale? I'll give you an example. If we're talking about the 3-day timeline, as we know, there are different seasons of utility locates. So, for example, in the middle of the winter, especially in Michigan, you're not going to be getting a lot of locates. So how would a company deal with having that massive staff, during the spring, the summer, and the and fall, and then all of a sudden not have any? What are they going to do with them? They're going to keep them around for a good measure. So
this is one of the challenges within the locating, I believe, industry, and they need to address this. We did not really we did not address how locating industry deal with this issue, but when we study the inaccurate locates, for example, and we try to find what are the causes of them. So the first cause, based on what we found from the locators and excavators as well, and I have here some papers, so because I don't remember everything. Here showing the first thing is the workforce shortcomings. So even within locating industry, they don't have even enough locators to do the work. And we have some locators, they do 60 locates per day, which is a lot, huge.
Wow.
So this will contribute to less accurate, right? The other thing is, for example, the gas industry, they always have the tracer over the gas line, right? Tracer wire. And these tracer wire normally during construction contractors, unfortunately, they just break them. But because this is not damage, they don't report it. So this tracer wire gets broke, no one reported, and they put the dirt back, meaning in the future, no one will be able to locate this gas line again because there's no tracer wire, right? So this is also, this is the second reason based on locators. Tracer wire is not there anymore.
But that was only on non-conductive. So, for example, a steel main would still be conductive, but it's only on the PVC, the PE, and the non-conductive gas mains.
And gas are a high-risk utility. So we also classify utilities into high-risk and lower risk. For example, cable TV, they are not high-risk. But gas is really high-risk if someone damage a gas line. So this is an issue within gas line.
Actually, I would actually negate that. Right now, during the pandemic, cable TV was very
high risk.
Absolutely.
You don't know what the kids are going to do.
No Wi-Fi. There's some.
Uh,
By the way, fiber optic is also expensive, so should be considered a high risk as well. The third reason, the third cause, based on locators, was the inaccurate maps. The maps provided by utility operators, utility owners, as built drawings are not accurate, and this is a huge problem. And a research team from New Zealand, they just published an article a few weeks ago, also mentioned that in New Zealand is the same issue with as-built drawings. They are not accurate. So this is one of the issues. Then the fourth one we have.
Let me ask you about that.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Like, what are the locators saying about the as-built?
So the locators, they don't really they don't know what's going on, why these maps are not accurate. I don't know. This is need to be studied. Someone need to investigate why this is issue, why we are having this issue. But this is a real issue. And one of the studies, I spent 1 day with a locator. So I spent 1 day with a locator sitting on his truck, and I was seeing how they do it. Yeah. So what they do when they receive a ticket, the first thing they do, they will look on the maps or drawings that they have from the owners. Yeah. And if the maps show there is no conflict within this excavation request, they directly hit clear. They clear the ticket, meaning there is no conflict. So the first thing locators use is the drawings provided to them, as-built drawings provided to them by the owners and operators. And if they are not accurate, that's it, done.
They're not doing a visual verification as well while going out, walking the site, taking note, nothing.
No, because again, if they have 100 tickets every day, they don't have time really. So they start with this filtering process. There's no conflict, clear, based on drawings they have.
So I'm going to ask you another question, just on the people you rode with. Were these contract locators or were these in-house locators? And is there a difference?
In-house locators.
Okay.
And they should be different because those in-house locators, they're supposed to receive more detailed drawings than locate or contract locators.
Oh, that's interesting. And just to define the difference for everyone, an in-house locator still works for the original firm. So, for example, if it's Excel Energy or a Southwest Gas or Bell Canada or AT&T, that would be someone who actually works for the utility firm and is locating on its behalf and is actually an employee of that firm. Contract locating is they are actually delegating the entire locate process out to a third-party firm that is their sole occupation, is locating on a contract basis. So very, very defined industry as well, and an industry which has grown within North America in the last 30 years. Sure. It's really grown and flourished, and now we're actually getting to that point where we'll call them the cracks in the sidewalks are beginning to show as we're going forward. So sorry, continue.
Yeah. We cut you off. Yeah, what was there was another point.
Number four.
Sometimes the locators, they go to the job site and they have no access to the job site because there's something going on in the job site. And for sure, the fifth element is the limitation of locating. So all locating equipments come with limitation. So there's no locating equipment will tell you this is 100% accurate. So at the end of the day, if we solve everything, still there's some probability that the locate are not accurate. And if we look at these causes, we will see some of them are not really related or because of the OneCall system. OneCall system has nothing to do with them. You see? So some of them, even if you're going to hire a private locating firm, for example, you're going to face some of these. Some of these will also contribute to inaccurate locate, even if you're going to hire a private locating firm, not the OneCall system.
And just to define, the OneCall system is not the actual firm that goes out and does the locating, but the OneCall system is just a notification center, notifying all the different parties.
It's just a communication channel between excavators and utility owners or operators. Yes, true.
Excellent.
And same these reasons also contribute to the locate time, the delay locating time. Plus, sometime excavator, when they call one call center, they just give them, they don't really provide an accurate limit of where they want the locator to come and mark. So locators, excavators normally should provide wide lining for locators. So when locators come, they know exactly where to work.
Ahmed, I hate to ask you this. How would they provide white lining in an environment like yours in Michigan, where there's snow on the ground?
Very good, very good, very good. This is one of the issue also, the temporary nature of marks. So this is a two-way issue from locators and even from excavators and even from locators. When they come and place the marks in Michigan, there is snow, all these what's going on right now. It's a temporary nature. After 3 days, 4 days, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So this is all contributing factor or shortcomings of the current process. However, these are not the one call system shortcomings. It's the overall process. So everyone, it's a shared responsibility. So everyone is responsible for a little bit, right? Owners, utility owners should provide more accurate maps. Excavator should communicate the location of their excavation, and so forth. So it's a shared responsibility process, and everyone should do their job right in order to make the overall system working.
Now, this study was done in North Carolina, though, correct?
Let me remember. For excavators, I believe yes. For locators, we ask locators nationwide, not just from North Carolina.
Interesting. So I'm going to ask you another question. Is there also one-call abuse where companies are calling in entire jobs just so they can understand what's coming up and for the bidding process?
Yes, and this is, we call it system noise. So there is noise within the system, and all this noise also contribute to at least the locate time will take longer than it's supposed. And there's a lot of this. For example, in my last article that I published again with Louis and I, we talk about this. And we see there are few contractors, they just renew the request every 21 days. So they put a request for the whole project, maybe 50 miles. I'm not sure how many miles, a lot of miles there, okay? And there's no way they will be able to do this within the time frame, right? So what they do to ensure they have a valid request all the time, valid excavation request, they just update it every month. And this is a lot of load on the system itself, and this is system noise, and not good. Plus,
is it also engineering requests per se that they're disguising? Okay,
this is exactly what I want to say. Because the construction locate comes with physical marks, while the design locate not. Some design architectural engineering firms, they place an excavation locate while they only do the design. Why? For two reasons: to get physical marks, plus to get a response within 3 business days. Because the design locate sometimes takes longer than 3 business days, maybe 9 days, I think, or 12 days. So this is, again, a system noise that contribute to longer locate times. And again, it's shared responsibility. So those need to understand that while doing this, they will really negatively influence the overall process of one-call system.
So a collective responsibility through everyone to actually use the system correctly, and really understanding that my actions are actually going to affect my neighbor and myself down the line.
Very good. Very nice. Yes, absolutely true.
Interesting.
And based on this, let me tell you something. Based on this, we normally do the North Carolina 811 damage report every year.
dirt.
And based on this, we have a different categorization of causes than CGA. Dirt report, they have their own categorization of cause. For example, they don't have nothing about utility owners' insufficient practices. But we, within North Carolina 811 report, we have something about utility owners' responsibility, because inaccurate maps is their responsibility, right? So and we have something called general industry practices, like tracer wires, abandoned lines. These all the general industry practice. This is not the excavators' insufficient practice, not the locators' insufficient practice. This is a general practices. So again, based on this understanding, we have different categorization of the causes of inaccurate maps and the longer delay time of locates and consequences, and as a result, the damages. We have a different categorization of direct causes of damages, not root causes. They are all direct causes.
What's interesting, I think, is like when we talk to project owners and when we talk to GCs, it's pretty obvious that the problems can be fixed if there is a real strategy around utilities at the very early stages of the project.
Sure.
Like if an excavator hits a utility, there have been so many faults along the way in the project before it even got to the excavator.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
And I think and this is a lot of what this podcast is about, is how do we find the right SOPs and the right technologies and the right ways to solve the problem as early as possible in the process. And like saying that, I was wondering, what is the feedback that you're getting about this type of attitude from the locators and from the excavators? Because, like, just to take the locators for an example, a locator that has 60 calls a day, like if the plans of the project or were done, I don't want to say correctly, but were done wisely in the early phases, there wouldn't be 60 locates, 60 requests per locator. Like because the plan would have been, the infrastructure would have been planned in a way where it doesn't interact with so many utilities. Does that make sense?
Yes. And this is exactly why we call them direct cause, not root causes, because must be addressed during the design, during the early phases of project. It's too late to come and address these utility conflicts during the construction. Too late. And this will lead to a lot of delays, a lot of maybe utility relocations, and so forth. So again, the best way to address the utility, especially underground utilities, is during the design phase. And however, again, we are working right now on a study about private locating firms, and we ask few locating firms and tell them, okay, when you guys get hired, at what stage of project you get hired in the project. And based on I'm not sure if you can see this, based on what we have, mostly during the construction phase. So mostly they get hired, if those are private locating firms, mostly get hired during the construction phase, not the design phase. So this is, again, there's a lack of education about how to manage underground utilities. And this is clear. There's a lot of work need to be done to educate the owners about the importance of managing underground utilities during the early phases, or during the early phase, at least the design phase of construction projects. Otherwise, it's too late during the construction. Too late.
What can we do as an industry to incentivize the project owners to, first of all, like that there's an aspect of doing the work and mapping their assets, right, and making sure that that the locations that they have for their assets are accurate. That element first. The second element is, how do we get them to to make this data more accessible?
Yeah, I think the only thing we have right now is education, through the education. Plus, if we can modify a little bit the damage prevention law in each state. Like I believe that during the first interview, you guys talked about Arizona damage prevention law. And in Arizona damage prevention law right now, there's something about abandoned lines. The utility owners still have to locate their abandoned lines. If it's, I'm not sure, after 1985 or 1992. This is very good. For example, in Michigan, the damage prevention law, there is nothing about abandoned lines, nothing on it. While this is a very important topic that must be addressed. So why it's not addressed until tomorrow by the Michigan, for example, this is just an example, I'm not pointing out, but just an example. By Michigan damage prevention law, I have no idea. I think there's need to benchmark the damage prevention law, at least in all over all the United States, and found what is really currently held, then try to apply it all over the nation. Otherwise, we will keep doing same mistakes. Like abandoned lines, how come abandoned lines are not addressed here in the state of Michigan? It's not acceptable, to be honest. Not acceptable.
So I'm going to ask you a question. Where do you have that balance between the ROI of actually collecting that information and locating that information? If a firm believes that their line is abandoned and not in use anymore, where do you actually put that balance? Because I know a lot of places as well will reuse those lines. So are we actually tracking, are you talking about tracking ownership of all lines and then keeping a registry right through and through? And where do we actually have our ROI on our return on investment of doing that? You know, is it that balance? Did you see it as a balancing point that Arizona, because they actually make utilities maintain the ownership and also maintain the presence of their abandoned lines? Is there a true difference, and is this something which can be used right across the states as a precedent?
So return on investment, I don't think there's any return on investment for the utility owner themselves, because they will not use it anymore, right? But there is a return for investment for the public, because a lot of damages is because excavator, when they start excavating, for example, they found an abandoned line, they think it's the active one. Yeah. Then they start using the backhoe or their excavators, and as soon as they start using the excavator, they damage the active one. And this is approved. A lot of damages because the abandoned lines. So return on investment for keeping record for those will be for the society. There will be a lot of benefit for the society to keep record of these. And sometime if it's needed, I think they should be removed. As soon as you start not using them, you should remove them, because we need this space for maybe newer version of the utilities.
I'm thinking I'm thinking of the magnanimity of that statement. Just imagine, let's say you have an old ELPA, a low pressure system, low pressure gas system, and the low pressure gas system was with non-regulators, so the actual gas line went right into the house. There wasn't a meter outside, there wasn't a regulator outside. Yeah. Just imagine trying to remove thousands of gas services into houses. Yeah, it's mind-boggling. And
so let's keep them, but let's have a record for them. Let's keep them, but let's locate them at least. Or have
now, when you're saying locate them again, normally when you had those low pressures, the tracer wire, or actually the low pressure system actually had CVTs, curved valve Ts, main shutoffs. And once that line's no longer in use, a lot of them disappear. But I'm just trying to think. It's a mind-blowing task of trying to handle all the abandoned and also wow.
So and we need to think about it. We have to think about it. Because it's a challenge, it's an issue that must be resolved. Otherwise, we will keep damaging active utilities, because we have these and we get confused which one is active, which one is not.
So the damage prevention merry-go-round, around and round we go, and we keep on hitting the same thing again and again.
Yeah. So it's a challenge. It's not an easy task. And again, there's need to, for a shared responsibility, the whole industry need to sit down and think about these issues and how it's possible to address them as effective as possible, as cheaper also as possible. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah,
I think there's
absolutely
an
incredible where
element
this
of.
goes, because
Sorry, Ophir, I cut you off
keep on going,
as
David.
usual.
No. I was just saying how incredible. Where does it go? It's such a large task, but you know what? Eventually, we will get there. It's just a matter of perseverance.
We have to, right?
Yeah.
And I must emphasize that, David, just give me. I must emphasize that despite the OneCall system deficiencies or the current shortcomings, it's a crucial system and a very much needed system for two simple reasons. First thing, it's the service is free. And as we all know, most of the construction firms in the United States are small construction firms. They lack resources. They don't have resources to hire private locating firms. This is the first reason. The second reason is the OneCall system satisfies the legal requirements. So whatever, if you hire a private locating firms, if you hire a sue firm, you still, before you dig, you need to call. This is something required by law to do. So it's still a very crucial system, very much needed system for these two reasons at least.
Interesting. I never thought about it as the small mom and pop excavators, and as you're saying, that's a majority of the entire system. So that's really, that's another thing to really think about, how it affects them right through.
I
Yes,
think
David.
no, it's okay. Like we've got we have this often where I ask a question or Phil asks a question at the same time whilst our speaker is trying to talk, and it's like it's how it is when we're doing this all remote. So yeah. So I think what I'm getting at, and we talked about this in CGA, in the last CGA in October, I think it was their event in Florida, and everyone was talking about this one source where all the data gets put there. So the data from the locators and the data from the project owners and the utility owners and the GCs and everything is in one place, and that's where, as an industry, we need to go to. And like, even though that was kind of the mission statement, like it was up there on the like on the slide, the main slide of kind of the goals of the industry. I can't remember really how they said it. Something about a one source GIS database, something like that. And yet, like when you talk to the different stakeholders, when you talk to the locators, like the locators aren't inclined of like just giving out the data that they work for so hard. Yeah, the excavators, like if they find something, yeah, so well, it's not my problem. Like unless I need to pay for it, yeah, I'm not going to pass the data on. And like the utility owners, well, that really depends, yeah, because we all know that if the telecom guys aren't going to share any of their plans of where their fiber is buried, and some of the other utility owners, well, they may not even know, like if it's like one of those old utilities, an old water pipeline, or something that was built kind of in the 1930s or whatever it is. They don't even know it's there, and we have all these stakeholders.
Oh, hang on, David. Hang on.
Yeah.
You missed one thing: the mega amalgamations of purchases of different companies, and then amalgamations of data sets as well.
Yeah, the mergers
and acquisitions. Yeah.
Exactly. When the companies come together, like when two utility owners and one buys another one out, and then the guy was responsible for the records, who was kind of at the basement of the building, like with all the files, kind of. Well, he goes, kind of finishes his career, and like the data got lost in the merger and acquisition. Then that data is lost, and basically what I'm saying is that I think we're all culprits. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, of this issue that we're dealing with as an industry, because no one's stepping up to take responsibility, right? Because it's all a game of liability. Like when you start a project, who's going to be liable? That's the first question. Like that's why we have the different delivery methods, right? Because we want to know who's liable. Is it the
contractual
DOT?
relationship? Yes.
Exactly. Is it the DOT who's liable, or is it the general contractor? Who's assuming liability? And I think that until we all share, and I don't know, maybe this is like some sort of utopia, what I'm about to say now. Yeah, maybe it's like it's not possible, okay? But I think that until we all share an equal amount of liability, and we all care about the issue, not like, of course, there's a safety issue, and there's the schedule and cost issue, and there's all these variables of the damages that this causes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that until we all kind of put skin in the game to fix this and kind of do something that's not required of us, but it's the right thing to do, this problem isn't going to be solved. True. I went on a rant.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something here. So, in way we are trying to solve problems, normally there are two ways, I think. The first thing is a touchy feeling. Do it for your family, do it for your colleagues and something. This is good.
Yeah.
But this is not going to work. We need to work through the damage prevention law. Damage prevention law will tell, okay, utility owner, you need to do this. Excavators, you need to do this. And if you don't do it, there will be consequences. So we need to come up with measurable actions for all stakeholders to ensure that we're going to do it right in the first place. And how we're going to do it? We have to start with the damage prevention law in each state. Yes, owners should educate themselves, the project owners. They should be educated about the importance of the managing underground utilities. They should understand there will be a huge return on investment if they start managing during the design phase, even during the planning phase, early in the project, by hiring maybe, even especially if the project is a complex project, they need to hire a private locating firms. It's a necessity here to hire a private locating firm. However, again, because most of the construction firms in the United States are smaller construction firms, then we need to address this through the law and education. But first thing is through the damage prevention law. I think this will be the first step.
At what point do we get to a factor of it is going to be law? Because as we know, almost every law and every regulation has been written in blood. How much? How many people have to get hurt? How many financial ruins do we have to go through before it actually becomes one of those hot button issues?
I think the number of damages talks for itself. So it's a huge issue, and the industry recognizes this. So right now, what we need to speak up. And I think one of this interview and the other interviews are very important to really bring the lawmaker attention about the necessity of visit the current damage prevention law. So damages, that we have a lot of damages every year, and we only really look at the reported damages. There are still some of damages, no one report them, right? It's clear. There's a clear issue. There's a clear challenge that must be addressed. Then we need to talk. We need to speak up. All stakeholders, all individuals who are interested in this field, in this topic, we need to speak up, and I think this will help prove the overall process and revise the current damage prevention laws.
It's really funny you said about the damages. One thing I remember speaking to a backhoe operator, and he was saying, damage is anything I can't fix with duct tape.
And this is true. Sometimes there is a huge pressure on subcontractors to finish on time. So sometimes if it's small damage, if they just can't go with it, they will do it. Unfortunately, this is not good, but this is the nature of our industry, and we should be aware of it, right? Yeah. There's pressure, schedule pressure. They are subcontractor. They need to finish this job today so they can move to the next job tomorrow. Otherwise, they will not be able to provide food on their tables. So they have to do it. Yeah.
It was just a scratch. I just, just a little bit.
And again, as I told you, the tracer wire, they do break them every day, and that's it. Just leave it there. It's not a damage. It's a tracer wire. Yeah, but this will lead to future damages. This is not good. You have to report them. You have to call so they can come and fix this tracer wire, but no one. Unfortunately, not many do it.
I remember being on a pipeline job several years ago, and they just scraped the yellow jackets, and they're going, "Well, no, I just removed, I just took off a little bit of the coating. It's okay." And I'm going, "No, that's the whole point of the pipe integrity. That's actually what maintains the cathodic. Yeah, so it's I just touched a little bit of the yellow jacket. Here, I'll get some yellow tape and we'll put it back on. It'll be fine."
Yeah, let's finish. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving.
Guys, I got to tell you, I slightly disagree with what you two were saying, because I don't think it's just in the legislation. I think that until the stakeholders don't feel the return on investment or understand, like until we find a way to talk in numbers, in dollars, about what this means, what the risk is that they're assuming in money, it's going to be very difficult to make a change. Because if you look at a project and you kind of say, okay, like this is the scope of the project, the risk that you're assuming regarding subsurface utilities could amount to, I don't know, $15 million. I'm just kind of throwing out numbers. That is a figure that a stakeholder can say, okay, I understand. But if we don't say that, if like there isn't like some sort of, I don't know if the right term is industry standard, but I'll use it for lack of a better term. But until we don't have that, I think it's going to be very difficult, even with regulation, to make stakeholders comply. What do you guys think?
Well, hang on a second, David. Just so you know, when I said regulation is generally written in blood earned finance, which means there's a reason why that regulation came out, because someone died or someone got sued.
Yeah.
So.
True. And someone said, if you say safety first, then you are killing safety. You must always say business first and integrate safety into business. Do you see?
Wow.
So yes, we need to make it as. So you are correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the law profession is doing very well in the construction industry, as we all know. 'Cause at the end, it's always.
I think
okay, so I regret to keep on going, David.
Week.
So let's keep on going.
So we don't get sued. Yeah. Yeah, you were saying, Ophir.
Well, so after the entire study, and we've identified all the root causes and the direct causes. Mm-hmm. What's that next step from that study? Are we going to shelve it, or are we actually going to start taking it, road showing it, and going to every state and going, here, we have a concept, we have a plan, we've actually done some investigation. What is that next step for you with that study?
So it's a continuous improvement, right? And continuous improvement never ends. So we have to build on this knowledge. We have to build on this knowledge and continue doing research. But again, the problem with research, if no one really, and this is a real problem with academia, many researchers, they do a lot of good research, but some of these research are theoretical, not practical. Plus, if it's practical, the problem, no one reads them. So we need to educate. We need to continue educate the industry stakeholders about the importance of these small steps, because the improvement will not come overnight. It's step over step, right? So I think, again, the only way we can do it right now, at least for us, like I'm lucky because I having Louis working with me. So Louis can do something, and he is actually doing something, a lot of important thing within the North Carolina 811 system to improve the overall system. From my side, because I have no authority at all, so the only thing I can do is just to educate, talk about this topic, and hoping someone will listen, someone with authority will help doing these small changes at a time. We don't need to do a whole change, because this no one will accept it. Everyone will say, no, we will not do these huge changes. But one step at a time is fine. One step at a time is fine.
So that really takes us into that next thing of the private locates. Now, you said you also started looking at the private locators and
Yes.
studying the private locate system. How does that interconnect with the OneCall, and how do we take that forward?
Okay. So this is something Louis and I discuss. We say, okay, here in North Carolina, for example, we have private locating firms. And the mission of OneCall system is to prevent damages. So how it's possible to utilize the private locating firms to reduce damages? And this is a valid question for sure. So we did a small study last year, and the main idea, we start to understand the scope, who hired the private locating firms, and at what stage. And this could help in the future, North Carolina 811, communicate the benefits, the use of private locating firms to its customer, to whoever called them. They may tell them, okay, you should call private locating firm.
So I'm going to ask you a question. These private locating firms are not sanctioned by the public utilities. They do not have the public utilities records.
No.
They're only there for the private infrastructure, or they're actually doing a little bit of both. They're locating the. Yeah.
This is good. This is a very good question. So yes, they don't have. So how it's possible for them to get the records, right? Because they don't have it. So because of that, some of them, they use OneCall system.
So again, we're back on the merry-go-round.
That's hysterical.
So they place ticket with OneCall system, and OneCall system will come and at least mark the outside of their area, right?
That's
and
fantastic.
Based on these marks, they will have a good idea about what's going on, what entered to their area. Then they start using their tools. So because of that, when we asked them, do you utilize OneCall system? Many of them, they said yes.
They'll actually admit that.
Yes, they say, yeah, we are using it. And unfortunately, I even read reports from private utility firms, and they claim they achieved quality level B through OneCall system.
Nope.
Which is no way, right? No way.
No.
Because you need to have an engineer, a professional who stamp, who look at the results. And unfortunately, anything through OneCall system, there's no engineer, and you don't know who did the mark.
Don't even get me going on that, because I am so when I hear that, I get so mad. I'm going, there's a whole aspect of judgment, and that's what you are getting within. Yes. If you're going to be getting quality, then that's the other side, the Sioux side. But let's really focus on that, on the private side here. Sorry, when I hear that, I get so mad, and I want to thank Jim Onspach as well for really instilling that in me. That whole, what you are paying for is the judgment of the engineer. Does this make sense? Have I actually would this practice of installation actually make sense in this area? What geophysical tools were used? Combining all those different things together and understanding what the placement was, what type of placement, what was its relative distance to another utility, and so on and so forth. Really,
so this is a huge issue, because we asked some of them, do you need to have a professional, a registered professional, to get quality level D or B or something? Some of them say no, we don't need. So this indicates that there's even lack of education and outreach about SUE itself. So people, they don't know SUE. Even people who are working in the industry and they have their own private locating firms, they have no idea about what the requirements under SUE. Again, so this is an issue that must be addressed by the industry through education.
So how about the skirting of the line when they're not calling it SUE, but they're calling it SUM? Here, I'm doing subsurface utility mapping, so it's okay. I can put quality level on this, but it's not SUE, it's SUM. What do we?
Not good by all means. So we asked them, one of the questions that we asked them, who hired you? Like, as private locating firms, who hire you to do the job? So mostly is by architectural engineering firms, which makes sense, and followed by general contractors. These are their markets. So starting with architectural engineering firms, which is good. This meaning these firms that hire private locating firms, they really understand. But again, we're going to ask, who's going to pay for this service? The owner, whoever hired the architectural engineering firm. So that meaning also the project owner, they really understand the importance of the overall managing underground.
Dr. Ahmed, I'm going to ask you one question just tied to that.
Yes.
Do you think the AEC from the architectural engineering firms are actually thinking that they're absolving themselves of liability by hiring the private locator as a pass down or a pass through?
And this is good. And this is something I'm going to have a small article in Damage Prevention magazine next month about liability, about this. So any liability should be addressed in the contract. So all based on the contract language between the owner and the architectural engineering firm. Start from the owner. The owner should tell the architectural engineering firm, while you are doing whatever the design for me, you need to address the utility conflict, because I don't want to spend a lot of time, a lot of money during the construction phase. So this is the first step. Then the architectural engineering firm should, if they have some qualified team in-house, that's fine. If not, they should hire a private locating firm. Again, through a contract, they should shift the risk, right? It's all about shifting risk to the private locating firms. But however, shifting risk to a non-qualified entity is not a good practice. So if you're going to shift this risk liability to a private locating firms, you should hire a qualified locating firm. Otherwise, you will get in trouble, a lot of troubles, right?
Sorry, have you seen the language from private locating firms on their documentation saying that they take no responsibility, that they do not take any responsibility for items not found, and then they've done best effort in terms of geophysical locating and so on and so forth?
So based on the duty of care, they should do it best up to, like they should do it based on their best knowledge. That's fine. But still, are they qualified or not? So if you hire a non-qualified firm, yes, best knowledge is not that good, right? But if you hire a qualified locating firms, their best knowledge will be good enough to avoid utility conflict during construction.
Sorry, what do we consider a qualified firm in the U.S.? I know that's another contention. Is it because they've gone through the SU school from ASC UESI? Have they gone through the Staking University out of Michigan?
So this is a good question. This is all good. This is a very good discussion. What is considered qualification? A good qualified firm. Again, it's based on their previous work, plus based on their team. What kind of individual they are hired? What are their resume? What their experience? So it's not about education, because experience has a lot of weight more than education, to be honest. Experience, number one. Yes, certification is good, then education. By education, I mean college, a college degree. So experience. So if we try to procure a qualified team, a qualified entity, we need to look at their previous work plus their team. Who's going to work on my project? I need to know them. I need to see their CVs to be sure they are qualified. And this is all could be done through a good procurement process, I think.
Is that just me, or is that both of us? Can you hear me,
no,
David?
I think
okay.
We've lost.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, Dr. Ahmed,
we
lost you for a minute there.
20 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me repeat myself.
Yeah.
When it comes to qualification, the most important thing about qualification is two things, I think. The previous experience and the team that will do the job. And this is something the owner or the architectural engineering firm, they can ask for. They tell them, okay, if you want me to hire you for this job, give me what you did, the last 10 jobs you did, and how you did on them. It was good enough, not good enough, plus who's going to do this job for me? I need to see their CVs. So this is a procurement method, and that should be used to hire a qualified private locating firms. It's not about education. I think it's the experience. The team that will work on the job will carry more weight than education in this case.
Is that how great your legal department is at your company, or is that a QBS system?
QBS. What's the QBS exactly?
qualified base selection.
Base selection, yes. Okay. Yes, no, qualified base selection. So all about qualifications. Because if you're going to hire a qualified team, there will be trust, a lot of trust. You're going to trust on them. They will communicate to you. So a qualification is more important than a legal team, I believe, in this case. I guess. I'm not sure.
No, that's
Ahmed,
interesting.
I got to ask you, we have two last questions for every final episode.
Okay.
Oh, hang on, David. I want to hear about his Sioux study, because I know that he's also getting into the Sioux realm right now. Correct?
So I think then we'll need to do another episode. Because I feel that's going to have to be a must.
Are you you're now actually transforming and you are evolving and going to be doing a Sioux study as well? And
yes, we are trying to better understand the Sioux scope, like what scope of work. And we currently we're working to compare between the DOT scope of work when it's come hiring a Sioux firm here in Michigan and Colorado, for example. We are trying to...
That's a great comparison. No, very good. Yeah. Excellent. No, and you're right, David. We definitely need another session with Dr.
I think this has been one of the most interesting episodes.
Because
I think it's one of these episodes where we've both covered kind of what's happening at kind of the late phases of the construction project life cycles, and we've also talked about the impact of doing it right at the initial phases.
David, I don't want this to end. It's such a great I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I have so many more questions and so many more comments which I can make right now, but don't cut me off. Let's keep on going.
I'm sorry. We need to stick to the schedule, Phil. Unfortunately. Ahmed, if you would have to summarize in a sentence or two what you think are the key takeaways from your work that the industry can learn from, what would it be?
It's a shared responsibility. We should all sit down together and talk about the current challenges as a one community. And we have to come up with the best possible solution in the short run, like within 1 year, what we can do within 1 year, and what we should plan to do within next 10 years to improve the overall process. Because we understand some solution will take a lot of time to be implemented. That's fine. But there are a few things could be done to improve the overall process. And these small things are not hard. We can do it within 1 year. But we need all to sit down together, discuss them, and come up with a plan to implement these solutions. It's a shared responsibility.
I could not agree more. I think that's a type of statements that we back definitely as a podcast and definitely as an organization. Absolutely. And last question, and I think the most important question: who do you think should be our next guest on the podcast?
There's a lot of experts in the field. You should have interviewed them, but you should have I think one from the OneCall system, one of the director of OneCall system, so they can tell you exactly what's going on within this world.
So you need
How
to
about
do
your
some
counterpart from North Carolina?
I'm gonna ask him, and I think he will be happy to do it.
Excellent.
Okay, so we've got that recorded. So now
let me add something if possible. Is that possible? Add one thing.
Sure, of course.
There's something is really bothering me, but I have to say it here. One of your interviews, I believe the last one, they talk about societal damages, and they say it's 29 times 29. The actual.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. I'm not against the study, but as Doc said, there's a limitation with every and each study. This study is based on a very small size. And one of the values was a real outlier, like 100 something. So what I want to say, and unfortunately CGA also adopted this number, but this number is not accurate based on my review. And So I think, I'm not sure, it's maybe 50, maybe 20, maybe 10, but it's not 29, because this study come with huge limitations.
Implications.
Yeah, and we should understand that. That's it.
No, that's just on that topic alone. You've opened up a can of worms here.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I won't get started.
We need to have another hour of a podcast now.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Ahmed, I'd like to first of all thank you for spending time with us today and giving some real key insights into what's happening in the industry. Lots to learn from. I think there's lots that we need to do as an industry. A lot around education. There's a lot that we need to do there, and it's great to have you a part of that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this great conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, just to say, I've really enjoyed this. So thank you, and I look forward to many more conversations with you, even off of the podcast, because I believe I have a lot to learn from you.
We're gonna have you on again. I'm pretty sure.
My pleasure.
That's gonna happen. Okay.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.